I mean, ADHD is the topic, right? I don't know. Obviously I'm a layman in this area. You're obviously not. And I hear ADHD, I hear ADD, it has, for me, it has a context of being a kid. And
Right.
it's not I don't know. I come from like an old school background, and we're going to kind of dispel some of these myths, I hope, right? I come
Right.
from like an old
Yep.
school background. It was like, those kids, that's just pharmaceutical companies, wanting to give kids drugs, and these kids can't sit still. They need a good smack. Obviously that's not, there's some in the
Right.
spectrum that fit that category, but I think it's a lot more complicated than that. I'm sure you'd attest to that. So, I guess you want to start with telling us your story. I think that's would serve as an amazing backdrop to the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you so much, Benny, for
Yeah.
having me on. This has been a personal journey for us and for my family.
Yeah.
I have three boys, two of which have been diagnosed with ADHD in the past couple of years. For us, the journey started, I should say the journey to diagnosis kind of started around first grade. Although if I'm honest with myself as a mother, I think I've saw now in some of these tendencies and some of these issues before that, but it's very difficult to separate what is just a young child and
Yeah.
what is something that needs to be, handled in a more concrete way. But it was first one child, and it was first grade. And up until that point, I could just tell that there were some troubles with him having focus and learning and kind of comprehending material. And I kind of chalked it up, and I think teachers did too, to maybe just being a late bloomer, and that kids kind of bloom at different times. And then it was first grade fall around parent teacher conference that I thought there's something not right here, and we need to figure it out. And so we started our journey for that my one child to getting diagnosed and working with our pediatrician, working then with a more diagnostic test and process. And for me, I really had never had much exposure to ADHD. Probably like you, Vinny, I had heard of it,
Right.
knew of it. It was that kid that just couldn't kind of sit still in school.
Mm.
And little did I know there was so much more beyond that. And so I started the journey of, in order for me to help my son, I need to understand it better,
Yeah.
and start putting really a team in place.
Hmm. Now, so two of your three kids, you said. So, I mean, how did you start to have that feeling? Like, I mean, as a mom, you guys have all sorts of intuitions that,
Right.
I probably couldn't relate to, and a lot of others couldn't relate to, but were you comparing his kind of maturity in school compared to others, or what was that comparison? I mean, or is it just like, how did you distinguish between what was that aha moment when you just articulated, it's like, something's not right here? Was it a sequence of things? Was it one giant, was it just a building of observations from your perspective?
Right. I think it was a slow building of observations. I
Mm.
had my oldest child does not struggle with ADHD. I kind of did somewhat of a comparison. I know you have to be
Yeah.
so careful to compare your kids, but I just kind of felt too, by like first grade, some of these concepts, some of these things should be starting to smooth themselves out.
Mm.
And ADHD does often run in families. And so I knew that there was some of that in our family. And so I was trying to keep my eyes and ears,
Right.
peeled to some of that. So it was a slow building, but I think, Benny, what really probably turned the page for me in recognizing that there was a problem and that I needed to do something immediately to address it was how my son was talking about himself and his lack of
Mm.
confidence. And at first grade, he was starting to talk about how he was dumb, how he didn't like himself,
Oh, man.
that he was sorry. And so it was very clear that it was starting to impact his self-esteem and how he felt about himself.
Mm.
And I thought, okay, this can't continue. This just cannot continue. My understanding is that a child gets kind of confirmed in who they are between the ages of about 8 to 11. They start to set that mental tone for who they are.
Mm.
Am I a good student? Am I going to be successful? Am I loved? Am I smart? Do I have friends? And I did not want that to get into that period of time where his self-esteem was so low. that
Mm,
you can't pull up on it. So when I heard that negative self-talk, and then all these other factors on top of it, I knew that I had to do something, and I
mm.
needed to start this journey to talking with experts, talking with teachers, that I couldn't just leave it alone.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess, for the listeners, what is it? I mean, what is it really? I mean, is it easily diagnosable? Is it, do you have to sit and, see psychiatrists for years? Is there a brain scan?
Right.
What really is it?
Well, and I think that's it. I think one of the challenges to ADHD is that there isn't just an easy pinprick and a blood test, right?
Yeah,
It
yeah,
would be fantastic if it was something that easy, and certainly would be wonderful in the future if science moved in that direction. It really is kind of a combination of factors and kind of unpacking your child, that it's an exploratory process, and so it
yeah.
requires working with pediatricians. It requires, we went to a place here locally in Leesburg called Mindwell Psychology that did a more of an evaluation of them, to kind of see where some of their challenges in particular were lying.
Mm,
And so there are multiple ways to kind of attack it, but it really is observation based. And so we had our teachers fill out different forms, and score them on different metrics such as attention and
yeah,
focus. I mean, all sorts of things like that. And then you have to kind of collect this data and then come up with a diagnosis of whether or not they have it. And that, I think, is what's challenging. Now, yes, there are brain scans. People and have done research and will brain scan an ADHD mind versus a non-ADHD mind. And there are some differences there, which kind of confirm that ADHD is real, right? It's a
mm,
complex neurological disorder.
yeah,
And so it's just that for an average person, right, that's not available to us to go
yeah,
and to get a brain scan. And it really requires working with doctors and people that understand that ADHD is real, and that there are some challenges with it, but also if you recognize and understand it, there's some really great things too about having ADHD. And that the earlier you diagnose it, you understand it, the better you can work with your child to help them thrive.